Hi, Dr. Ivey-Soto. So I was having a bit of a problem with Panopto, so I decided to do something else so that I could get my presentation in. So I'm going to do it like this. And so the article that I chose was "The Poor Are Paying More and More for Everyday Purchases." And this was by Max Ehrenfried, and it was the New York Times article. So why did I choose this article? Well, I chose this article because my junior year in high school for AP Language, we read a book called Nickel and Dimed by Barbara Ehrenreich. And so in this book, Barbara Ehrenreich is a journalist from New York, and she basically left that job and went undercover as a waitress in multiple small towns across America. And so virtually she went from an upper class paying job to a lower class entry level job, where she wasn't making much money, and she details just her journey through America, through small towns in America as a lower class worker, and how she really wasn't making enough money to sustain herself. And she even had problems with toilet paper, which is a huge part of this article. And I found it really interesting because we were writing a paper on nickel and dimed, and we actually used this article as a source, in addition to another article that was mentioned in here, which is called "Why the Poor Are Paying More for Toilet Paper and Other Things." So it was just really interesting to see that, actually sad to see that even 2 years later, they're still dealing with this problem that the poor are paying more for just everyday necessities. And so just some general insight into this article. So basically, the New York Times is stating that the poor are spending more on everyday purchases, and this is due to the fact that they have less money to spare during each week. They're spending more on, let's use the toilet paper anecdote. So you can get a pack of toilet paper of 8, right? But that's going to be more expensive, but you also get more toilet paper. But see, in the situation of these lower class individuals, where they have only a set amount of money, they can only afford to buy, say, a 2-pack instead of an 8-pack, because they don't have the time to save that money, and they need that toilet paper now. So they end up spending more money constantly buying that 2-pack of toilet paper than they would have spent if they had bought the 8-pack. So therefore, they end up paying more money for the toilet paper, a regular everyday necessity that the rich would have easier access to because they can just afford to buy a massive 8-pack. And so in addition to this, a study from a Harvard student named Javier Harvell, that was in this presentation, in this article, stated that he found that annually the prices of everyday items are going up 2% annually. So that leads to another problem, because if the prices are going up 2% annually, the upper and middle class are able to move with that price range, because they're making enough each week that they can spare that money to go up to 2%. However, those in the lower class who are at a set amount aren't able to move with that time, aren't able to move with that percentage. So that leaves them in a position where they can't buy things that they really need. So if the toilet paper prices are increasing by 2% every year, then not only are they, from the first anecdote, not able to get the massive pack of toilet paper, but they can maybe get the 2-pack of toilet paper. So that leaves them doing, what are they supposed to do? It's left them virtually helpless in this situation. So do I agree with this article that the poor are spending more and more on everyday necessities? And yes, I do, because not only with this article, but addition, like what I was saying before about nickel and dimed, it really showed that when Ms. Ehrenreich and the author of this article, Mr. Ehrenfried, both looked back, they could see from the statistics, they surveyed 30,000 people, and they could see that there was a gap between the upper class and middle class. And soon enough, as the prices kept increasing for upper class, the lower class couldn't afford it anymore. And so I totally agree that the poor are spending more because they don't have enough to buy in bulk, per se, in this particular situation. So the solution to this, obviously this has to do with inflation and just how money comes and goes during like the cycle of business. However, to solve inflation, I mean, it's just like a extremely hard problem to solve. I mean, the country's been dealing with it. Every country's dealt with inflation. So, I mean, they obviously are trying to find ways to lessen it, but it's still prevalent in our society. So, I think that one thing that we could do is to combat like how we handle inflation, because I mean, obviously it proves that it's not stopping anytime soon. So I feel that if we could find some kind of tax distribution legislation that would allow for the rich and the poor to be able to survive when this 2% um, increase happens, then I mean, it's so idealistic, but I mean, hopefully that could change something. However, I mean, I'm obviously not well versed enough to try and find a complete solution to just the injustice of, you know, the fact that one group of people can buy a daily necessary need like toilet paper, and the other has to struggle to be able to buy that. Obviously, it's going to be a hard thing to solve, but it just shows the injustice that these people face in America just off of class alone. And then if you were to bring in race, then you could see like that injustice compared to black people to white poor people, or from Latino poor people to black people. Just even that brings you into even more categories, because due to their race, that could even lower their class. So it's just a hard problem to solve, and hopefully with time we'll be able to shed more light on these problems and show that these people are really enduring these day-to-day injustices. But articles like this and books like Nickel and Dimed by Aaron Reich, and other articles like Why the Poor Are Paying More for Toilet Paper, things like that, are really helpful to just bringing light to these issues and showing that, you know, it's not something you can just write off. And they have the statistics to show that these problems are really prevalent in society. So hopefully one day we'll be able to finally give a conclusion to these age-old problems. But thank you, and I hope that I answered all these questions and that I showed my understanding of this complex topic. Thank you.